The evening sky was painted with shades of purple and orange when Adaeze walked down the narrow footpath that led to the river. She carried her small clay pot balanced carefully on her head, humming softly to herself as the sound of crickets filled the air. Adaeze was a quiet woman in the village, known for her gentle spirit. She lived alone with her little sister, Onion-Eye, in a small hut that belonged to their late parents. Life had not been kind to Adaeze. She often struggled to put food on their table, and her only comfort was the calmness of the river that flowed at the edge of the forest. That evening, the air was cool and the first stars were beginning to appear. Adaeze liked to fetch water just before nightfall when the river was quiet and no one was there to disturb her thoughts. She stepped into the soft sand by the riverbank, bent down and filled her pot with the clear, cold water. But just as she lifted it, she froze. A faint sound drifted through the air, a voice, weak and trembling, calling softly, "Help, please help me." Adaeze's heart began to pound. She looked around quickly, her eyes scanning the tall reeds and bamboo trees near the river. At first she saw nothing, only the rippling water and the swaying leaves. But then the cry came again, louder this time, filled with pain. She set her pot down slowly and moved closer, her bare feet sinking into the wet sand. Behind a cluster of reeds, her eyes widened in shock. A woman lay half submerged by the water's edge, her body tied with rough ropes. Her long hair clung wetly to her shoulders, and her skin glistened like moonlight. But what made Adaeze step back in disbelief was what she saw below the woman's waist, a long, shimmering silver tail, covered in delicate scales. The woman was not a woman at all. She was a mermaid, and her stomach was round and heavy with pregnancy. Tears streamed down the mermaid's face as she lifted one bruised hand toward Adaeze. "Please, they want to kill me and my baby. Help me." Her voice shook like a broken flute. Adaeze trembled. Every story she had ever heard about mermaids flooded her mind. Spirits that lured men into the water, dangerous beings that cursed those who crossed their path. She wanted to run. But the mermaid's eyes, filled with desperation and fear, held her in place. Why are you here?" Adaeze whispered, her voice barely audible. The mermaid winced in pain. "Hunters. They caught me when I came too close. They tied me here to return after dark. I beg you, untie me before they come back." Adaeze's breath quickened. Her hands shook as she looked at the ropes digging into the mermaid's skin. At that moment, the crunch of footsteps echoed from the nearby path. Men's voices, rough and mocking, carried through the air. Adaeze's eyes widened. The hunters were returning. Her body shook violently with fear, but something inside her refused to leave. She dropped to her knees, her fingers fumbling with the rope. "God help me," she whispered under her breath as she pulled and tugged at the stubborn knots. The mermaid whimpered in pain, whispering, "Please, hurry." The voices drew closer, and Adaeze could already hear the men laughing about their prize and the riches they would earn. Sweat poured down her face. At last, the final knot came loose, and the rope fell into the water with a splash. "Go!" Adaeze hissed. "Swim away before they come." But the mermaid was too weak. Her tail flapped weakly in the shallow water, and she groaned, clutching her swollen belly. Adaeze looked around desperately, then bent forward and wrapped her arms under the mermaid's shoulders, dragging her further into the river. Just then, a hunter's torchlight flickered through the trees. "Did you hear that?" one of them shouted. Adaeze's heart thundered. She half-submerged herself in the water, holding the mermaid close, hiding behind the reeds as the hunter's shadows drew nearer. The mermaid pressed her cold hand into Adaeze's palm. "You saved me," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Suddenly, a rustle in the bushes drew the hunters away. "Look, an antelope!" one of them cried, and just like that, they rushed off, shouting and chasing through the forest. Adaeze let out a shaky breath, her entire body trembling. With the little strength the mermaid had left, she pulled herself deeper into the water. Before disappearing beneath the surface, she looked back at Adaeze, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Your kindness will not be forgotten." Then with a final splash she was gone. Adaeze stood frozen at the riverbank, her chest heaving. She looked down at her wet hands, still shaking, and wondered what she had just done. Slowly, she picked up her pot and returned home, though her mind remained on the strange encounter. 7 nights passed. On the 7th night, when the moon was full and the stars were bright, Adaeze awoke suddenly. A soft glow filled her small hut, seeping through the cracks of the wooden door. She rose from her mat quietly, careful not to wake Onion Eye, and stepped outside. Her eyes widened. In front of her hut lay 3 beautiful chests, glimmering under the moonlight as if they were made of starlight itself. Adaeze's breath caught in her throat. She bent down and touched one. It was real, heavy, and carved with strange symbols that seemed to move like waves. Slowly she opened it. Inside were gold bracelets, coral beads that shone like fire, and silver coins that sparkled in the night. Tears filled her eyes. She understood immediately. It was the mermaid. From that day forward, Adaeze's life changed. She sold a few of the treasures in secret and used the money to buy food, clothes, and medicine for her sister. She repaired their hut and even helped widows and orphans in the village. Slowly, word spread about her sudden wealth, but no one knew the truth. Every night, Adaeze would sit quietly by her doorway, gazing in the direction of the river. Her heart would whisper prayers for the mermaid and her unborn child. And though she never saw her again, she knew in her soul that their lives were forever bound by that night at the river. Whenever people asked, "Adaeze, how did you become so blessed?" she would smile gently and reply, "Kindness never leaves empty-handed. It always returns." And so, the poor village girl who saved a pregnant mermaid became a woman whose story was told for generations. A story of courage, compassion, and the miracle of kindness.